So I'm going to do a presentation about Saruq al-Hadid, but especially about Area 2A and our work for the past 3 seasons. So here is an aerial view of Saruq al-Hadid. Saruq al-Hadid has other speakers from yesterday, Dr. Mansour, also Dr. Lloyd. They spoke yesterday about the location of Saruq. Is located approximately 50 to 60 kilometers from Dubai, also 95 kilometers for Abu Dhabi. And apparently there is no water sources or any fuel at the site that could help the apparent metal production that was held at the site. But the latest research and also the discovery of some wells in the central area of Saruq, here in this area, may prove contrary. It may prove that during the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, probably the area and the environment was much different at that time. So our institution, the Sanisera Archaeology Institute, along with Dubai Municipality, excavated part of the Area 2A. I'm just going to go back. So is this area over here. Here we have the central area, okay, and we excavated this part along also with the Dubai Municipality team that excavated this other area. So for the past 3 seasons, we were able to excavate approximately 1,700 square meters, so it's quite a lot. But in this area also, we don't have a higher stratigraphy as, for instance, in the central area. So we have approximately between 1 and 2 meters of deposits. So it's easier, or at least faster, to do it. And we were able to, in the first year, to start excavating 11 squares. Then we passed to 21 squares in the second season, and the last season, which was the longest ones, and that we were able to excavate 36 squares more. So, and in all this area, the past 3 years, we were able to recover 5,000 singular objects. So it's quite a lot. It's as has been mentioned, Saruq is quite a special place in terms of archaeological materials found, which we are going to now present to you. So in the past year, we have been doing also some carbon sampling and also some pottery analysis to try to identify the chronological period of Area 2A. So we saw yesterday that the central area of Saruq al-Hadid had a longer stratigraphy from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age period and even pre-Islamic periods. But in Area 2A, we only found 2 periods. A major one, which is Iron Age 2 period, that was attested by 8 radiocarbon samples that were collected on the structures that were found in this area. I'm going to show them afterwards. And also 214 vessels that were identified, and 120 identifiable shapes also that help us date this period. But also a small occupation, we cannot say that it was like the Iron Age occupation, of course. It was just maybe some groups moving along during the Middle Islamic period that was attested by also 12 pottery vessels and 2 radiocarbon datings. So, but hopefully in the future we'll have more comparison work. But we can already say for these 8 ones that we have a prominent period that goes from 1000 to 900 BC. And this matches with also the pottery, the type of pottery that was found in the area. So here is just for you to show, because these structures, there only appears in this part of the site, at least so far. And they are all like pit-like structures that are carved on the gypsum bedrock. And they were all, as you see, I have some of the sections here, and they're carved in the gypsum, and we always find them with a layer of abandonment, so a clean sand layer on top, and then the last use of these structures that were used from some kind of combustion activity. We cannot say exactly for what, because the only material that was found inside is charcoal and burned sandstones. So, and they were found 24 so far that we have. You can see the latest map and distribution of these structures. And they also always have these debris, the same debris that is found inside, you always find them also on the outside. So here on this part, there is also charcoal and sandstone that is thrown away, like almost if it was like a cleaning process. Every time that these structures were used, they would clean them and throw this debris on the surroundings. So we end up like with a big charcoal and sandstone distribution around these structures. And here also another image. So this is a view of one of the structures, this structure 17, if I'm not mistaken, and where you can see all the charcoal and the sandstones. And here some collecting, also collect always the charcoal and the sandstones as well for analysis. So in here also, so some of the pottery. So some of it we collected and that we studied last year with the help of Anne Benoit, that last year has been working with us to identify this pottery. So, and we see, I'm going to talk a little bit more after about the pottery later on, but we have several local ware coming from Alain, also maybe central Oman, but also some imports from the areas of Iran and Mesopotamia. And also here, the ceramic from the Islamic ware, also classified with the help of Tame Power, that give us a little help on identifying this vessel. So this is just some of them. So you see the water jars on the top. And this one that we have still not sure, but it's a glazed ware that has been completely modified by the erosions, by being overexposed to the sun, and even in contact with other metal objects that completely changed the look of this vessel. So now the main evidence of Saruq al-Hadid. So from gathering all of the information that we have, we identify that Saruq had 4 major activities. So we have a metallurgical production, we have a jewelry production as well, and associated with these 2, possibly a trading activity at the area, commercial activity, and also was a place for meeting and cultic process that we're going to explain further ahead. So about the metallurgical evidences. So only in this area of Area 2A, so there was almost 3 tons of slag that was recovered. There were also the structures that I showed you before that were 24 by now. There were also fragments of crucibles. There was also some technical ceramic from the furnaces that were also found. There are also several copper ingots, evidence of remelted objects, like objects like the arrowheads, for instance, that were used again, and also 2,500 objects of copper that we believe that were probably produced at the site. And here, just some quick interpretation. So one thing, correct me if I'm mistaken, but I believe all the other missions as well never found any minerals on the site. So our main belief is that probably the metal was already being brought to Saruq al-Hadid after a first smelting. So, and in Saruq, they will only do a second smelting or later smeltings. And because most of the slag that we found is this slag here, as you see, rich in copper, sometimes very rich in iron as well, that we believe that there was still resmelted for extracting more of the copper. And also here we have, for instance, an example of an ingot that was also found at the site. This one not in our area, but in our area of Dr. Mansour from Dubai municipality and by Hassan. And also here examples of some of the melted objects. You see that they're all concreted, attached to each other. So, but I think you can see the arrowheads that were resmelted. So and here's just the distribution, because what we have found in this area is that Saruq al-Hadid, or at least in this area 2A, we have two very different types of slags. We have that common black slag that is always found on the top of, or in the first layer, and that it's cover the entire site. And in area 2A, it was found mainly in this central area. Of course, they were spread to the others, but in much less quantity, but the big majority in this mound here in the center, while the structures are surrounding. But they don't have any direct connection, because this slag is found at least almost 2 meters above these structures. On the opposite way, on the layers near the bottom, so immediately over or in the layers where the structures were found, what we have is this slag rich in copper. So it's completely the opposite. When we have one of the slag, we don't have the other type. And here you see some of the distribution. So, but this one distributes rather randomly. We have a bigger slags here on this area here, but we also have small nodules on this area where we don't have any structures over here, but they were still present. So this was scattered all over the place, but near the bedrock in the area. And here's just an example of how this slag rich in copper is mainly found. Many of it is just spread all over, but this is a good example where you have the structure, and then immediately next to it, there is a mound of nodules of this small nodules of slag that was placed next to it. We don't know if there is a direct relation, but because inside of the structure there was never anything found apart from the charcoal or the sandstone. There were no bones also. There's absolutely nothing. But then we always have this slag immediately over, and sometimes within this layer, that here you cannot see it very clear because it's still a little bit covered by sand, but below this is a deep layer of charcoal and sandstones. And here also a distribution of the sandstone, that we coordinated all of the sandstone that is surrounding the structures. So this debris of charcoal and the sandstones as well that we marked over here. We still have to finish this part, but you can already see the dispersal of the sandstone as well. Now, regarding to the jewelry production at the site. So the jewelry production is attested especially by the famous gold beads that have been found predominantly in Saruq al-Hadid. Only in area 2A, 320 were found. There are also over 5,000 beads of many different types, so carnelians, agate, different stones, bones, shells that were found. And also a lot of other materials such as copper rings, copper bracelets as well, but also some raw materials that helps us attest that the place was actually a production of this type of jewelry. So we have several gold drops, but also several gold filaments, such as these ones over here, and attesting for the other beads production. So we have here an example of shells that were unfinished. So you can see that here they were probably doing it, but it broke, so they discarded it. And this is found in several of the beads at Saruq. The gold beads also, there are several ones that are found but with small deformities, so that help us attest. And here also, because in the last year we also did a gold study on the beads and the raw materials that were found. It will be published very soon. And we found all of the evidences of this production in the gold, especially objects that weren't finished. So you have hammering techniques, the cutting techniques, polishing techniques, and even twisting and the production of filigrane in the gold. Now, of course, associated with the metal and the jewelry production. Because of, like yesterday, on the presentation of Dr. Mansour and Alain David, that they were mentioned about the 58 stamps that were found. So 13 of them were in area 2A, and it's also attesting possibly to this kind of activities, the trading activities, so probably maybe craftsmen that were being at the site, or even some elites that were controlling these activities. And so we have the attesting by the stamps, all the stamps found, but also several scales of different size. We found, for instance, last year, this bigger ones, but there is also several smaller size ones. And here's just an examples of the different stamps that were found in area 2A that yesterday were already explained. Now regarding the melting and cultic places. So we have several information, so several objects that indicators that there was some kind of ceremonial or ritual activities being held at the site, especially as being agglomerated together, especially if we're talking, for instance, here at this image, where we found an alabaster vessel, and then 3 necklaces placed next to it. And similar to this one, there were also several agglomerations, for instance, of copper arrowheads, along with daggers, also along with snakes. I'm going to show you afterwards. So there is all this information that help us, along also with the type of ceramic vessels, I will explain afterwards. Softstone vessels that were found as well, the alabaster vessels, copper vessels that were found on the site, also the anthropomorphic and zoomorphic figurines, and some votive objects such as miniature objects, weapons, daggers, axes, and arrowheads, fishhooks, and necklaces. I'm going to explain this now. So, the pottery, the way that we interpret the pottery is that considering the shapes of this pottery, they were mainly jars that were found. There was 1 or 2 bowls, maybe the other were found, and then also several spouted vessels, such as this one. I think 37 in total, only of this one. And they're all, there is quite a big number of imports as well to the site. And also the comparing this pottery with other places. These are kind of pottery that normally appears or in burial contexts or then in other meeting and cultic places. They don't also show any much signs of wear, so although in area 2A they are quite fragmented. We noticed that there was, because they were found on the sand dunes and with the movements of the sand dunes, a lot of these vessels, some of them had dispersal of almost 20 meters on the surface. And here, for just an example, for instance, of the softstone that we found, several of them complete, others that we reconstruct, and we have approximately 40 individuals that were found. There is also the copper figurine. So this copper figurine is something that I believe is unique to Saruq al-Hadid. So also another publication will be prepared this year so that you know more about this, because they're very interesting. So some of them, they looked like humans, no? So anthropomorphic, although there are some, you cannot tell exactly what they are. I'm going to show you after. So here you have distribution of these copper figurines. Oddly, they were mainly found around this structure 12, that it was dated from 1000 to 900 BC. So, and these were found in the layers right above that debris layers from this structure. So they probably correspond to approximately the same period. And also along with this, there were also some small copper plates and also some miniatures such as this. I'm going to show you afterwards. Okay, here's also some of the other images. So we have here, for instance, one of these anthropomorphic figurines. Some of them have facial features. I don't know if you can see it clearly. Also some gender features. So we need to study these ones because it can provide us a lot of information about it. Also, then the snakes. only of snakes. I believe it were 73 in total that were found, also in these layers, along with the copper arrowheads distributions, with the axes, daggers, and again, as comparing to other sites, they were always in sites that might have some ritual ceremonial features. And also associated with water and copper, the copper that can clearly be seen in Saruq. The fishhooks, you may ask why the fishhooks are here. Okay, the fishhooks, we put it here because they found only in this area. We found 92 fishhooks. Also, in the same context, in the same depositional zones as, for instance, the snakes, the copper arrowheads, all of these materials. So that's why we included here, because they might be some kind of ritual associated with them and with the other objects. And then some miniature votive objects. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed just the scale. So it's 10 millimeters. So these are very, very tiny gold objects that were found, a snake, and also bow and quilt that were found on the site. This one actually not even saw it, that it was this object, and then only our gold specialist, when he was looking at it, he noticed what it actually was, because it was so small. And here an example of these miniature axe heads, similar to the other ones that we have, and then but in miniature size. It's one and another one. And also, so some of the axe heads that have been found also in this area, and also one of the dagger, this one with a copper handle, and then with an iron blade. So just to talk to you about a little bit of the ongoing research. So right now at the moment we are excavating in other area of Saruq al-Hadid to try to see the difference between the areas. So yesterday they already mentioned that it was quite different from area to A. And also we want to do some geomorphologic and hydrographic studies because we believe there must have been water on the site. Even if they were actually producing the copper in here, they needed the water and fuel as well for supporting this activity. And ongoing publications about the gold, the pottery, and the copper anthropomorphic figurines. So a big thank you. I would just like to thank again to the Department of Culture and Tourism, also to Dubai Municipality for all the support, to Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Khatum for all the patronage, and also for the Sanisera teams, but also for our collaborators and Steve that has been helping us with the research. Thank you so much.